You are listening to Keep Canada Weird, a weekly weird news roundup by the Nighttime Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the latest episode in my weekly Keep Canada Weird series. If you're new here, in Keep Canada Weird, my pal Aaron and I seek out and explore some of the more interesting Canadian news stories from the past week. In tonight's episode, we got a jam-packed agenda. You're going to hear Aaron's beef with a listener named Ellen take a very disturbing turn. We're going to stop by British Columbia and discuss an even bigger Pokethief than the one we had last week. Lorne Grabher is going to be one-upped by the Assman, and a chocolate bunny will find itself being used for evil. So let's get to it. Aaron Airport. Great to be back with you, buddy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. The pandemic is different now. I've been going places without masks, which is kind of cool.
You've been unmasking, have you? Interesting.
A couple places. Well, I always forget. So it used to be like this awkward thing where I would go to a store and then I'd have to dig through like under my seats in the dash, eventually find like this dirty mask that my kid got chocolate on, and I would wear that and go into the store. But now if I don't have a mask, I just can go in. I just keep my distance.
You just go for it. Oh, good for you.
But people very close to me, particularly Mrs. Nighttime, has criticized me as getting through 2 years of the pandemic without owning a single mask. And it's true. I've never owned one the whole time. I just
You borrow people's masks, do you?
No, like they
you
like
see them coming out of the store. Can I borrow your mask for a second? Yeah, they won't let me in without one. So
we have this thing where in my closet where it's designed, I think, more for hanging like gloves and mittens and stuff off of for the winter. But
yeah, a lot of people hang their masks off of that.
Yeah, ours is like squid shaped, and each of its tentacles, or it's octopus shaped. Each tentacle has all these little hooks, and we have it covered in masks. None of them are mine. But we wash them regularly, and as I need one, I just grab one of Mrs. Nighttime or my children's, which are a little tight. But anyway, that's we're not here to talk masks. That's, I guess, history now, and we're here to talk about current affairs.
Right. Well, it is current that the mask mandates are being lifted in a lot of places, or have already been lifted.
Yeah, good
But
point.
I think I heard in Quebec today they're talking about extending their mask mandate.
Well, I know PEI did extend it, and I wouldn't be surprised if something happens because right now, literally my entire neighborhood has COVID.
No, every second person I talk to has it. So
yeah, well,
feel like last year again, a little bit.
Yep, it is. But anyway, aside from that, you got anything going on here? I know you haven't been out of the house in a while. I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask what you've been doing, but inside like your fortress of solitude there, has anything happened?
Oh, I just started season 5 of Better Call Saul.
Okay.
That has happened. It was just added to Netflix. So I've been only watching Better Call Saul as it's released on Netflix. I'm not totally up to date yet. So
okay, you'll get there.
Yeah, I will. I'll watch season 5, and then season 6 is starting soon. So it's a great show. Loving it. Looking forward to season 6.
I started to tell you before we went live, or I told you a bit before we went live. I'm watching a documentary on Crave. I think it's called I Love You, Now Die. And it's the story of Michelle Carter, who is an American woman who encouraged her boyfriend via a series of text messages to end his own life. When he did, she was charged with manslaughter, I believe, or some kind of charges, but I don't know what the end result of the charges are because I'm only halfway through it, but it's a fascinating story. If anyone does it, if anyone's followed that story and want to learn more, that documentary is great. But if we're here to talk about dark stories, I think I have something a little dark for you to get into before we get into our main course. We have to revisit a past topic that has dragged on for weeks, which is, I guess we can call it the Battle of Reese's. I suppose is the catchiest name I can come up with on the spot. But just to give a timeline for new listeners, it started with a listener from the United States named Ellen, who did not like the way you use the word Reese to describe what she's known as Reese's. There's been a bit of a back and forth between you and her. threats were made. You stood up for yourself. Other listeners came forward to stand up for you as well. Eventually, we got the smoking gun evidence where a listener had sent us photos of Reese next door to Reese's products on a shelf, which muddied the waters. You demanded an apology from Ellen, and I think the way you described it is you envisioned something like Will Smith's apology to Chris Rock for the slap. Ellen did send something in. I don't know if it is what you're looking for.
Well, I haven't heard this yet. This is my first time hearing this, so why don't you just let me have it?
Buckle up.
Here we go. Here we go.
Aaron, you will get no apology from me. If you go on YouTube and look how to pronounce Reese's, you'll get a woman who will tell you exactly how to pronounce it. Also, you hate vanity plates? Well, I have one. It says K-O-L-A-J. And it's a French word. Can you figure that out? Have a good night, Aaron.
Oh, wow.
Have a good night, Aaron. And I think that is a threat.
It is, yeah. Legally, that's another threat. We're just, making the case longer here that of the threats. But she has a vanity place.
What it spelled is she said it was K-O-L-A-J. That spells collage. Ellen is an artist who does, and I think I may have told you this in some of the past messages. Is she's an artist who does collages as her medium, so a lot of like clippings and stuff glued together to make these kind of otherworldly creations. But yeah, so what do you got to say about this? I think it's
well, maybe Ellen could make a collage of the word "I'm sorry, Aaron." Kind of cut out in different pieces of paper and different fonts, and make a collage of a Reese peanut butter cup.
I don't know if a package arrives to your doorstep from Ellen, I would be careful opening that because I think there's some serious beef here.
Well, I mean, I just want to say to Ellen that this isn't personal. Although you've threatened my life, and you've insulted my intelligence of whether I know the word collage or not, and. I'm not going to take it personally. I understand some people are passionate about certain things and it comes out in certain ways, and I'm not going to hold that against her. And
hers is violence.
I'd like to be the bigger man here and basically apologize to Ellen for upsetting her by winning the argument about how to pronounce Reese.
Okay. Let's move on because I don't want to live in this dark space any longer.
It is a dark space,
and I'm kind of torn between.
Haunting.
And I'm torn between two people. You're one of my best friends. Ellen's one of my longtime listeners who've we've formed a personal relationship. So I'm kind of torn between.
Well, you can. I'm not asking you to choose. Maybe Ellen is. I don't know if Ellen's asking you to choose. Maybe that's the road she's taking here. But I'm not. I think you can have your Ellen and your Aaron, and you can live happily in the middle.
Kyle McDonald in the chat says you're owed an apology collage for sure.
I agree.
We got another voice memo here. This one is in reference to last week's episode. We listened to the recording of the young boy in Newfoundland and his grandmother, who were quite hilariously upset about the very cheap snow globe they got at the dollar store that broke. We got a voice memo from a listener named Ross who wanted to share his thoughts on dollar stores in general.
Hi, Jordan. This is Ross from Australia. I've always loved your show. Really liked the last episode of it. The kid whose snow globe exploded in his hands. What a character. But that brings me on to dollar stores, which I hate with a vengeance. I just think of all those products and think of them as being in a state of landfill purgatory. Just, it's only time before it ends up in the tip. Anyway, keep up the good work. Ciao.
He referred to the dollar store as landfill purgatory, and that is so appropriate. I often say, like, there's products that are made to be sold, and there are products that are made to be bought and used. Mm-hmm. And like, although it sounds similar, there's a big difference. A product that's made to be sold, all of the design considerations are simply in like how it will look in a package. Will the package hang on the shelf? Will people grab it and buy it? But there's no consideration to what happens after it's purchased. And then you would get a high quality product, which is manufactured so that someone would, you know, buy it and use it for a lifetime and get their money's worth or whatever. The dollar stores are very much like stuff simply made to last long enough that you can get through the checkout and out the door. And by then it's already like, you know, useless. If it's a toy, it's broke, or a little piece fell off, or the stickers are peeling off, so it looks nonsensy, or it has like a thin layer of paint that once you use it once, you know, as a utensil, the paint's going to start peeling off. And it gives me such guilt shopping at dollar stores a lot, because especially when it's a plastic product, because I know that it's going to last me a minute and then end up in my garbage because it's probably not recyclable and end up in a landfill. Do you do a lot of like dollar store digging?
I go there sometimes. I don't go there a lot, but I don't know. I know what I'm getting there. It's not a surprise that something I buy at the dollar store maybe falls apart really quickly or doesn't necessarily work. I feel like you're rolling the dice when you buy something from the dollar store, and I think the dollar store knows that, and the customer should know that too. I guess it's
kind of an agreement
it's kind of an agreement. We're going to sell you stuff that's really cheap, and hopefully it gets you by, you know, the one time you plan to use this thing. Or but there's been stuff that I bought there that has lasted me a long time. Like I bought, you know, glasses there, and like drinking glasses and cups and stuff like that, and it's all lasted a decent amount of time. But I have no kind of expectation of quality that when I'm buying something there.
One thing that's been interesting is in Canada, we have one of the major dollar store chains that we have out of Montreal is Dollarama. Initially, when it opened, everything in the store was $1. And then over time with inflation, it was like everything was $1 unless it has a price on it. So some things would be like $2 or $1.50. If it didn't have a price, it was $1. Now when you go into Dollarama, everything is, you know, a couple bucks, you know, $4. I just saw in the news, I think it was in CBC or something, like last week, that they had announced at like an annual meeting for their shareholders or whatever of Dollarama that they're going to start raising prices further with, I think, right now the most expensive stuff I think is $4, but it's about to be raised to $5. And I just wonder, like, the longer that chain lasts, the more out of time the name is going to be. Like, because it's kind of, they made a statement by being like Dollarama and being a dollar store, but if everything's like $4 and $5, it's kind of silly.
Well, they're starting to creep into Walmart's territory.
I don't know if this is semi off topic, but it's about kind of a business changing. We've talked a lot about Tim Hortons and their packaging, and we've complained about their cups. I don't know if I told you on or off air, but I read that A&W is going to start using this kind of revolutionary new coffee cup, which is an all paper cup. It almost looks like a paper box that you can put the coffee in, and it even has like a little spout and stuff you can drink from. And I read that A&W in Canada is going to start using them, and then I don't know when, but I think in the not too distant future. I was going through the A&W drive-through the other day, and I asked the person at the window, I don't know what I was thinking. I was like, are you guys selling the coffee in the boxes yet? Like the little boxes? And this person looked at me like I was nuts and then she like turned over, and I guess like the manager was there. She's like, Dave. She brought him to the window, and so I'm like, oh, it's not that big deal. But I asked him, like, I heard I read on the news, there's going to be this new box. And the guy's like, bud, whatever you read didn't make it to me. So anyway, that'll be a story for another day. But A&W is, they're talking about companies kind of pivoting to something else. A&W is trying to get into the coffee business big time.
Yeah, that's a natural, because you saw the success of McDonald's, kind of really taking it to the coffee chains, and with McCafe and everything they've done there. You can see that A&W is licking their lips on that kind of market, and they really want to up their coffee game because they see the success that and the additional business that it can bring in.
Well, let's get into the main course here. So I've hand selected a couple stories that took place. The majority of them are recent, but both of them but two of them are a little older, but tie into things we covered that were recently in the news. When I put together the collection of stories, I titled it, as far as the episode header, as Another Pokethief, A Bad Bunny, and Yet Another License Plate Dust Up. So those are kind of the three main topics, I guess, we have going in here. Do you want to, when we start this, do you want to get in with the Pokethief, the bunny, the license plate? Where do you think would be a good spot to start this?
Yeah, let's start with the Pokethief.
All right. When we did the original Pokethief story, that was last week. It was the guy who was selling out west, who was selling Pokemon cards for a good amount of money online and sending them either worthless cards or altogether different, like hockey cards and such. When we did that story, I don't know if it was because I had been Googling like Pokemon cards, but my Google and all my social media stuff, for whatever reason, all of a sudden thinks I'm a huge fan of Pokemon cards. So I've been getting...
It goes back to the devices listening,
just like we talked about,
right? That we talked about last week.
Last week that we talked about? Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
It's happened to me because when I was researching that story, I was looking for different articles covering it. So I'd be Googling like Pokemon card, thief, scam, that sort of thing. But anyway, it kind of worked out positively. Although there's been annoying moments where I'm getting ads for Pokemon cards, and if I open Facebook Marketplace, it's all people selling Pokemon cards. But what did pop up is a news story out of I think this is out of Prince George. That's Alberta, right? I think it's in Alberta. But anyway, it's the headline of the article I'll read to you. But this involves a Pokethief who is altogether more intense than the online bait and switch scammer type. The headline in this story is RCMP seeks suspect in toy store theft. I'll read it to you. Local Mounties are seeking your help in identifying a suspect in a break-and-enter of a local toy store. RCMP said Great White Toys of the 700 block of Central Street West has been broken into shortly after 8 a.m. Sunday morning. And Sunday was February 27th. This is an article from March 1st. It goes on to say, police arrived within minutes of the call to find a smashed window and the theft of numerous high-value items such as Pokemon and Magic the Gathering cards. A police service dog was deployed but was unable to locate the suspect. Now they're quoting the store owner, Cameron Stoles. When I arrived, I thought to myself, what's going on? Security footage showed, and that's the whole quote that they included of him. Security footage shows the suspect hopping through the window. He then heads to the counter and starts putting items in a red plastic bag. He then heads to the glass case with hundreds of dollars of Pokemon cards and starts ripping the door off. Once open, the suspect grabs the cards and puts them in a black backpack. He gathers all his bags with the stolen items and he leaves through the front door. RCMP are looking for a male suspect, probably in his early to mid-30s. RCMP says he was wearing a gray hoodie, gloves, and carrying a red backpack at the time of the break-in. And if you look at the articles about this story, the security camera was like directly in front of him as he was doing the crime. So they have just these close-up shots of his face looking really confused. I don't know how they don't get this guy, but what this article didn't get across and didn't mention is if you look at some of the photos of this business, it shares a strip mall with a large bank. In the comic book shop is right next door to the bank. So when you look at the photos of it, especially as the police respond, you see a bank with a whole bunch of cop cars outside. You would never think that it was the comic book shop that they're responding to. And even the owner of this comic book shop, Cameron, who is quoted in that article, he made a video on YouTube where he's standing outside the smashed up window of his store, saying, like, apparently my Pokemon cards are worth more than the money in this bank because, you know, someone just broke in here.
Hello, I'm Cameron Stoltz, the owner of Great White Toys, Comics, and Games up here in Spruce Line Mall. This morning, unfortunately, at about 8 o'clock, 3 hours ago, we were broken into. It's interesting to note the perpetrator decided not to break into the bank for the money they had there, but instead broke into Great White through our plate glass window, crawled through this hole through the security film on the back of the glass, and then proceeded to steal Pokemon, because Pokemon's way more valuable than cash. It's not a good situation right now for us. We're a little upset about it. Okay, I'm really upset about this. We're talking thousands of dollars of damage for the broken glass, broken showcase. The product that's been stolen is just really unfortunate. I have to say a huge tip of the cap. Shout out to the RCMP. The RCMP responded to our window break alarm instantly. If the perpetrator had been 2 minutes slower, they would have had him. They ended up bringing in a full SWAT team. We had like 6 SWAT cars here, or RCMP cars here, plus a K9 unit. Really appreciate the due diligence on that part. We're going to show you the video of it happening, just because I'm really outraged right now. I'm really upset about this, and you should see who this person is who broke into our store and stole from us. Great shot at the end of him. You get a nice big close-up. You got to love our 8-megapixel camera there at the end. Anyway, just sharing my frustration today with you. Thanks for listening.
What confuses me is, and this isn't completely specific to this story, but the individual, you can see his face, you know, very clearly in the security footage. After 2 years of a pandemic where mask mandates have been all over the country, how do you not at least have a, you know, surgical mask that you can throw on before you go into rob a store?
Good point. This guy doesn't have a mask on. You get a perfect shot of his face. He never thought to just put even a surgical mask.
Yeah, like everybody's got masks, you know, dirty masks lying on the floor of their car. You know, there's probably a couple of dirty masks lying in front of the business that he broke into.
Seriously.
Like, this is, how do you not just throw on a mask or lift your t-shirt up to your nose or something? Like,
yeah, and of course they have cameras. In fact, one of the photos, he's looking directly into the camera. It's like a portrait. I just want to correct something. I said Prince George is that in Alberta? It's in BC.
BC, yeah.
Yeah. But this also harkens back to something we talked about long ago. Do you remember we talked about the story of the guy who wore like the garbage bag or the recycling bag to rob the convenience store?
Yeah.
And I said, like, one of the reasons they're going to catch that guy is that photo of him in the bag is so hilarious that it spreads around. In this case, I'm going to try to help solve this. What I did was I took a photo of the perpetrator and I edited it to put Pikachu ears on him. And I'm going to put that photo up online. And I wonder if the story of like the guy breaking into a store, stealing Pokemon cards, and having like the photo associated with that just be this guy with like Pikachu ears photoshopped onto his head. I wonder if that's enough to get more people's attention.
Yeah, it could work. You know, you might be onto something there.
I wrote to the Facebook page of the comic book store offering my unique take on an investigation, or I guess a public awareness campaign. I haven't heard back yet, but we'll see if they take me up on it.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, hopefully they catch the, you know, the thief and the, you know, the Pikachu perk or whatever. Perp? Yeah,
the Pika perp.
Pika perp. Yeah, that's what we'll call him.
Perpetru. I should get my son. He would be able to come up with like a really great Pokemon.
I'm sure he could come up with dozens and dozens of Pokemon themed names for this thief.
I think what we should do, since we're kind of since this story of the Pokethief is sort of updating something we talked about last week, let's do a double header and let's get into the license plate update.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay.
So in our last episode, we talked. We're both based in Nova Scotia, so we both knew and are familiar with the story of Lorne Grabher, spelled Grabher, wanted a license plate. It was deemed to be offensive, or possibly taken as offensive to women because his last name could be seen as Grab Her. Again, now all that came out at the time when Donald Trump was quoted as talking about how he's able to grab women thanks to his fame. So it was a complicated thing. Anyways, we know the Lorne Grabher story, but when I released that episode, several listeners contacted me saying like, wow, something very similar happened in Saskatchewan just a couple years back with another man with an offensive last name. I didn't know this story, but it's amazing. This is, and it's like the same story, but this guy's last name is Assman, but it's spelled Assman, which is clearly Assman. But he wanted to have his last name, Assman, spelled Assman, on a license plate. Saskatchewan's, DMV or whatever regulators weren't cool with it. I'm going to read you an article, and he, much like Lorne Grabher, he tried to fight it unsuccessfully, but he kind of found a creative way to get past some of his legal missteps. So let me read this article. The headline is Assman denied license plate, but displays name across his trunk's tailgate. So here we go. Dave Assman, I'm going to call him Assman.
Yeah, you might as well.
Dave Assman is sticking it to the man by sticking it to the back of his truck. When Assman, pronounced Assman, applied for a personalized license plate, his request was denied. Saskatchewan Government Insurance, which manages vehicle registration, called the name an unacceptable slogan. The Melville, Saskatchewan man has since immortalized his last name on the back of his truck with a large decal that looks just like a giant Saskatchewan license plate. Now they're quoting him. It's just a name, and censorship should be out the window, Assman says. He would still like the license plate, but he's happy enough with the decal, or decal, however you want to pronounce that. Assman said that the government seems to want to cater to those who may be offended by the name rather than give him the freedom to display his name. It upsets me, but I'm not one of those guys that's going to take big offense to it, he says. Assman said that he filed an appeal Tuesday of SGI's decision to not give him the license plate, and that SGI denied the appeal that same day. SGI responded to the whole situation on Twitter, and they kept it really short and sweet. So now there's a post, a screenshot of a Twitter post. Someone named Taylor McPherson makes a tweet, and he says, looks like Mr. Assman gets the last laugh as after SGI denies his request for a vanity plate with his name. And there's a photo of Assman's truck, and again on the back of his truck above his license plate is painted a massive, what looks like a Saskatchewan license plate, and it says, with his name Assman on there. So Taylor McPherson tweets that, and the SGI, the official Twitter account for the Saskatchewan Government Insurance, responds to the tweet with all's well that ends well, smiley face. And the Facebook post has been, with that photo, has been shared over 3,000 times. So so this guy couldn't get his plate. He appeals it. They deny it the same day, and he just paints it on the back of his truck and moves on with his life.
Yeah. I feel like that's a better way to handle the situation than the Grabher guy did.
Is certainly a better way to do it.
Like not, battling it out in court for years and years and years, trying to get your last name on your license plate.
Yeah, because
okay, I appealed it, they denied it, and I put some decals on my back of my truck. I'm satisfied.
Yeah, Grabher tried to take it to the Supreme Court of Canada. This guy just painted it on the back of his truck, and I have a feeling Assman has a way better sense of humor than Lorne Grabher. I think Assman would be a cooler guy to have at your party.
And I'm sure there was a lot of people who wanted to get Assman as a personalized plate ever since the Seinfeld episode, in the 90s.
I don't know this episode.
Oh, well, Kramer ends up, he goes to get his license plate renewed, his new license plates at the DMV, and they give them to him, and they mixed up his plates with somebody who got a personalized plate that said Assman on it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So then he puts the license plate on and he's driving around. It turns out that his plates were mixed up with a proctologist who wanted to have personalized plates of the Assman. So, you know, it's a really popular episode of Seinfeld. So I'm sure years and years after that, people have always wanted to get Assman license plates. And I'm sure you can probably get Assman front plates, you know, the ones that you can just kind of buy at any novelty place. I'm sure those probably exist, but
okay, that are just, you know, novelty plates based on that Seinfeld episode.
Same way you would get like a Montreal Canadiens plate to put on the front of your car or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I wonder if that's what inspired this guy to get his name on a plate. Or I guess if your last name is Assman but spelled Assman, it's probably like a running joke anyway. Like since you were young,
yeah.
It's been like his thing. So. Yeah, anyway, interesting story, but I don't know how I missed that one. Like, and I don't know why it hasn't come up in the whole Lorne Grabher saga.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a pretty good one.
Yeah. Let's take a little sidestep here. I have listener response to a call out that you had made a couple weeks back. I'll read through this and then we'll get on to the next story. So we of course we have talked a lot about Tim Hortons. It comes up all the time. Something you asked for were listeners to come forward with either gripes about Tim Hortons or their favorite food items or memories of Tim Hortons. I have Sue. I don't know if they didn't give me permission to use their last name, so I'm just going to call them Sue. They gave us a rant here of something that drives them nuts about Tim Hortons. And I think their rant will be one of the most relatable paragraphs I could read right now for any Canadian listener. So here's what they say. Jordan and Aaron, I have a Tim Hortons rant. Far too often I order something, drive away, and find out I got the wrong damn thing. And I live rurally. Am I going to go back? No. Am I going to get into one of those godforsaken lines that seem to always snake into a main thoroughfare? No. So I stick it out with a tea and with a bunch of sugar in it, or a cheese croissant replaced instead with gooey chocolate croissants, which I do not eat. What the hell? Tim Hortons owes me big time. And that's it. But I think that is a very, if you start asking people why they hate Tim Hortons, a lot of people will talk about, you know, I get my tea with cream in it, or they give me my coffee with, 25 sugar instead of, 1 sweetener or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. It happens a lot. But I mean, I always say to whenever people complain, like, oh, how can you get, how hard is it to make a cup of coffee? Like I said, 2 cream, 1 sugar. How hard is it to do that? But it's like, if you make thousands of cups of coffee in a day, in a shift, or hundreds or whatever it is, like odds are a few of them are going to be wrong, even if you're the most accurate employee there.
But it does happen a lot. So, but the odds are you'll get a few wrong, but I do feel like, well, I shouldn't say my coffee is wrong a lot, but I do find it inconsistent to the point where I'll take a sip of a Tim Hortons cup of coffee that I just bought, and sometimes I'll be like, ooh, this is a good one. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, it's just not right. Like it's always, I feel like it's always a little different, but sometimes I can tell they put way too much whatever in it and just screwed up my order.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really gripe on Tim Hortons too much for messing up orders.
They got bigger problems.
They got a lot of orders, and you're never going to hear people saying, oh, they got my order right, I'm going to tell the world. You're going to hear about the people who didn't get their order right. It doesn't happen to me a lot. Like, not that I go there ever, but when I have gone there, it's usually right. And other fast food places have gotten orders wrong. I don't think that's specific to Tim Hortons, but
I find there are repeat offenders, though. I'm on Sue's side. I find they get it an unreasonably it's like a statistically unbalanced amount of errors. I find. I think
it's when there's so many like coffee and tea orders that are all so similar, and there's a lot of them flying around. Like I can see how frequent mistakes can be made. But
Wow.
it should be up to Tim Hortons to figure out a more foolproof system, maybe. But
Well, I think the foolproof system eventually will be automation, where it won't be a person pouring your coffee. Someone will take your order and you'll see it on a screen, or or there won't even be someone taking your order. You just dump it in the little thing and the machine makes it. I'm sure that's coming. You just got to look at like self checkouts and all these other things, and that's the way it's working. One thing about Tim Hortons that this just popped into my head. Of course, we're recording this days after April Fool's. We're recording this on April 5th. April Fool's Day was 5 days ago or whatever, April 1st. Tim Hortons, much like a lot of companies, tried to do something funny on April Fool's Day. What Tim Hortons did was they tweeted, introducing Tim's all-new line of double coffee-scented dryer sheets. Throw one in a dryer on a 20-minute cycle, and you'll be smelling so good, people will do a double take. And they have like a photo of like, again, Tim Hortons branded dryer sheets. I saw that and I had to just roll my eyes, but I did respond to them because I like to like fight with Tim Hortons on Twitter, and I wrote, sadly, your April Fool's joke is hardly satirical given the nonsensical menu items that have been baffling your customers during your slow decline. But it's true. Like it's satire is just such it's not as obvious anymore.
Yeah. When Tim Hortons has gone as far as to make some of the things that they're making now. Yeah, you might as well do dryer sheets.
Give it a shot.
Who cares? Yeah.
Did you with April Fool's just passing? Did you try to trick anyone?
No, I don't participate in April Fool's,
like
and nor
April
do I acknowledge it as a thing,
as a holiday.
Mm-hmm. It's I don't know. It's something about it just doesn't.
It's certainly annoying. I didn't plan to talk about this, but I actually made my son cry on April Fool's Day.
Oh, really?
So my oldest son is obsessed with the video game Roblox. He plays it on his iPad.
Oh, yeah.
Nonstop. And what I did while he was at school was I took, if anyone knows how an iPad works, I rearranged his desktop. So I took the Roblox icon and I put it in like a folder within a folder so it was hidden. And my oldest son is, one of his like biggest concerns in the world is that his little brother touches his iPad, because if his little brother goes on YouTube, it screws up his recommended videos, or if his little brother opens his game, because his little brother will like go on YouTube and all of a sudden there's like baby shows popping up instead of like what he wants to watch. But anyways, the April Fool's joke was when my oldest son got home from school and the Roblox app was in a folder within a folder. I said, like, buddy, I'm so sorry. I let your little brother's iPad had died, and I wanted him to. I just needed a break, so I was gonna let him watch videos for a minute, and he deleted Roblox and all your save game files. And I showed him, and then he like opens his iPad, and the app's not there. And he's a 9-year-old. Immediately starts crying and runs to his room, and then I immediately realized, like, oh man, like, why did I do that? And then I had to explain to him it was an April Fool's. He was so mad at me. The whole day was ruined, but he's over it now. And even after I showed him, he's like, that was not a good joke. I don't want him touching my iPad.
You knew that. I trusted you with that information.
Yeah. I stabbed him in the back.
Yeah.
So let's get on to, let's do a Canadian crime that is topical for the season, because we're just getting into Easter, and I don't know if there's a more Easter-themed crime than what we have tonight for our Canadian crime segment.
Yeah.
Let me roll the intro, then we'll get into it.
This week in Crime in Canada.
Aaron, do you like chocolate bunnies?
I do. Yeah, some of them are very good, and some of them are very terrible.
So there's kind of a big. I don't know if it's this way around the world, but at least where I shop, there's kind of a few different, or like a series of popular Easter bunnies or chocolate bunnies that they have different names differing on the composition of the chocolate. So there's like I think it's called Mr. Munchie, which is chocolate that has a bunch
and that
of
has the Rice Krispies in it.
Yeah. Then there's one that's like the white chocolate, and that's like, I don't know, Mr. something else. I don't know what it is. Do you know
Mr. White Chocolate?
Maybe that's what it is. Do you know Mr. Solid?
Yes, yeah, I know Mr. Solid.
What is Mr. Solid then?
He's solid. He's just solid chocolate all the way through.
Yeah, he is just a chunk of chocolate. I would say it's so solid it could possibly be used and has been used as a weapon. And that's the story we're going to get into. Which is it's crazy. I confirm this to be true. This is an article that was published on April 1st, and it actually stems from a press release issued by police in Manitoba. The press release starts in all caps with stars on the side of it saying, "This is not an April Fool's joke." Which is a cool way to start a press release.
Yeah.
I'm going to not read the press release. I'm going to read the CBC article based on the press release, which gives a bit more information. The headline is "Solid Chocolate Bunny Used as a Weapon in an Assault on a Brandon Store Clerk." So let me get into it here. It may be April 1st, but police in Brandon say it's no joke that a 27-year-old man is accused of stealing from a business and assaulting an employee with a solid chocolate bunny. Officers were called Thursday afternoon after a man stole merchandise at a business on Victoria Avenue in the southwestern Manitoba City, a Friday news release from the Brandon Police Service say. An employee who confronted the shoplifter was hit with a Mr. Solid brand chocolate bunny, and the employee suffered minor injuries. The accused shoplifter ran away but was found and arrested nearby while still in possession of the stolen merchandise, including the chocolate bunny, according to police, all of which was returned to the store. The man was released from custody and will appear in court on charges of assault and theft under $5,000. This is not an April Fool's Day joke, police say in their news release. Sergeant Kirby Sararas, a public information officer, his last name is spelled S-A-R-A-R-A-S.
I'm sure they would deny that on a license plate too.
Yeah. A public information officer with the Brandon Police Service say he's never heard of a chocolate bunny being used as a weapon. The weapon that this 27-year-old male suspect used was less than typical from what employees would normally see or be assaulted with, but it doesn't change the fact that this employee was still injured as a result of just trying to do their job, she told CBC. I know oftentimes that people will use whatever is in their hand to commit assaults, but quite often it's something more typical than a piece of delicious food. She says retail theft is something that happens every day, and employees are often met with violence.
Yeah, it's definitely an unusual. It's makes sense though. It's because again, Mr. Solid's like, I'm sure
solid.
there's lots of stories of people when they were younger on Easter time where they're like their brother or their sister or something cracked them over their head with their Mr. Solid.
Yeah. But even the other bars are the Mr. Munchie bars. The other bunnies they're hard too. But just even like the Mr. Solid and the shape of it, the way they're shaped now is they're not kind of the typical bunny shape. It's a smaller bunny with big ears that you could really use as a handle. If you like took it out of the box and whacked someone with it, you could drill them. You could knock someone out with one of these.
I would say you could. Yeah, I would say there's probably people who have been knocked out.
Wow.
Fighting over eggs on Easter and then finally boiling over to somebody bludgeoning them with a Mr. Solid.
I think like the article is funny, but no matter what, it's still like the idea that an employee confronted a shoplifter and was met with violence is that's awful. But I think like if I was an employee and I saw someone shoplifting, I don't know, maybe you have to confront them. I don't know what the rules are, but I would.
Yeah, I would have to be in the situation to really know what I would truly do, because they say you're, from what I understand, they say you're just supposed to do what the person says and hand over the money and be cooperative and try to alert the police.
But that's in like a robbery though.
Can.
What if you just see like someone stealing like some I don't know, deodorant, lipstick, and a chocolate bunny?
I don't know. I mean, that's. I guess it would depend on what they look like, to be honest.
This little kid.
Like if it was some like 12-year-old, I'd be like, hey, you,
get on the floor.
Give me that Mr. Solid right now. That's not your solid, bunny. But if they were a tough-looking person, I'd probably turn the other way.
Yeah, I didn't see anything, boss.
I didn't see it.
But I guess there's also people who are like, I'm a loss prevention officer and I have to like, chase these people out the store. There needs to be some other way. Like with like a bank, they can have like those ink things where if you steal the money, this ink thing like explodes.
Yeah, it squirts them with the ink so that
they should have like almost like a version of that for the store clerks. Like imagine if you had like a water gun with like a red kind of paint in it or something. And if you see someone, you don't have to approach them. You can just be like 20 feet away and you could say like down the hall, down the aisle, like, I see that you're stealing, put it down and leave, or I'm going to spray you with the red ink. And if they don't, you just like start spraying them with the red ink.
Stop or I'll spray.
With the red ink or whatever.
With the red ink. Yeah.
And like you have to scream while you spray it.
Stop or I'll spray. Ah!
But that's would be safer, right? Or have it. Yeah. There's a lot of things you could do that don't involve getting smacked in the face with a bunny.
Yeah, but I'm sure that stuff costs money too. Like it depend on the store, and it depend on what kind of security features they could afford to institute.
That's a good point. Either way, they got this person. They're going to sound ridiculous at trial when the judge is, sentencing them for the assault on the store employee, and with a straight face, they have to like, describe the offense of like using a chocolate bunny to hit somebody. It's like, come on. They should, just to be clever, they should try to like rush it into court and have them like tried right before or right after Easter or something, just to keep it all on theme.
Yeah, that's the court's priority, is to make sure that it's all kept on theme.
Yeah. This is a bit of that was all a big sidebar. I didn't plan to make this our Easter themed episode. So let's move on before we make people chocolate hungry.
Yeah.
I got something else here. Now this, I sent you a couple articles. This one was a side note because it wasn't really like it wasn't a story I picked out to do. I think this is more of a listener service that we should probably start offering. Let me read you an email I got. So when you go to my website, nighttimepodcast.com, there's a section that says contact, and in the contact section, you can send a voice memo, which we've heard. That's how Ellen has been sending her complaints and threats, and listeners are often sending voice memo. But you can also just recommend a topic, and it's not recording your voice. You just fill in like a little form, and it sends an email with like a topic people would like to hear on the show. So here's the suggestion I got. It's from a listener named Joe from Manitoba. So Joe says, Jordan and Aaron, I remember a story from when I lived in Winnipeg back at the beginning of the 2000s. The details are foggy, but it had something to do with the Esplanade Real footbridge in the Forks. There was something about $1 million toilet in the Bridges restaurant. I've been able to find very little information about it, but this $1 million toilet is a great example of our weird but lovely Canada. So the details that they share were foggy. Basically, they remember hearing something about a $1 million toilet in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I thought, that's kind of crazy. How could you make $1 million toilet? But I did do a bit of Googling, and yeah, it's true. But it's not really what you would think. I found, like Joe says, I've only found a few articles referencing this, but what ended up happening is, like at the end of, I guess probably at the end of the year or something, like a city's expenses are shared, and like the taxpayers and media and all this stuff can look at it and criticize where the money's going. The mayor of Winnipeg found himself in hot water because $1 million was spent to put a toilet in a restaurant that sits in the middle of a footbridge. I haven't heard of. I'll explain what a footbridge was, because when I first read the articles, I didn't know what that was, but I found a photo. So it's a bridge not for cars, but it's just to walk across a body of water. So it's kind of like, it looks like they have like sort of a boardwalk type situation, but you can walk across this bridge over a large span of water. In the middle of the footbridge, so when you're kind of like in the center of the water, furthest from land in the bridge, there's a small little restaurant, which is probably busy in the summer because you would be sitting, right above the water, and there'd be people strolling by. But what I've learned in these articles and reading the mayor's defense of the situation is that, like, bylaws and building codes sort of thing in Winnipeg required that restaurants of a certain size have like restrooms, of course. So in order to put the business where they wanted it, they needed to put a washroom there. And the cost to actually bring the plumbing to where the bathroom was is why this was so expensive. But at the end of the day, yes, it's a $1 million toilet. I'll read you a short article that I found about it that kind of tells the story. The headline of this article, this is a CBC article. The headline is "Toilet Gets Mayor in Hot Water with Taxpayers." Let me just get this in front of me here. This is an article from May of 2003. So we're going way back. So I'm going to read you a short article. So Winnipeg Mayor Glenn Murray is an award winner, along with some other big names in Canadian politics. But it's a dubious distinction at best. Murray, along with Prime Minister Jean Chrétien and the Federal Gun Registry, have been awarded the Golden Sow, or Teddy Award, by the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. And this award is kind of like maybe you heard of a Razzie, where they give the awards to like the worst films and stuff.
The worst of this or the worst of that.
Yeah, this is like for the worst offender of spending the taxpayers' money. So I'm going to read you what happened. So Adrienne Betra heads up the Manitoba chapter of the Taxpayers Federation. She says Murray won the award for a project involving the Provencher Footbridge. We chose the $1 million toilet as the biggest flush performed. Murray says he's proud of the award, and Murray's the mayor. He says that some people just can't understand how he's moving towards building a more attractive city. The restaurant on the bridge will make it the only one of its kind in North America. He says the $1 million is what it costs to bring water, sewer, phone line, and other fiber optics onto the bridge for a restaurant that will sit halfway across the span, which links the Forks with St. Boniface. Murray says if he didn't build a toilet to go with the restaurant, the public would be left with few options. And here's a quote from the mayor. "Stick their bum over the edge of the railing? You think they'll do that?" Then he goes on to say the Health Act actually requires that you have water and sewer. And we actually do have water, and we actually do have sewer on most bridges for drainage and things like that, to protect the rivers from salt going directly into the rivers. This is hardly a great revelation. Murray says out of the $54 million bridge redevelopment project, $1 million to make the bridge a destination is a small price to pay. Murray says he may just keep that Golden Sower award in his bathroom.
Yeah.
He's proud of it.
Yeah, he's proud of it. I don't really see the big deal.
I think it's just one of those things where it's if you don't read too much into it, it makes a great headline and makes the mayor look bad.
Yeah,
and everybody likes that kind of story. But
yeah, it's easy to say, "Oh my God, they spent $1 million just to put a toilet up there." You know,
but
it's not
according
really
to
the case.
Yeah, according to him, it takes more. It's more than just putting the toilet there. It's also running like sewer and water lines, which you would need for the toilet. But if there's going to be a restaurant, they need running water, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a pretty cool, bridge, and then that's pretty neat that it has a restaurant on it. And I think $1 million, in other parts of the country, the world, have been spent much more frivolously than to put plumbing up in that restaurant.
Yeah, and this is also this is 2003 though, and $1 million was a lot more money in 2003 than it was now. Like that's 20 years ago, but still, it does. And also, like anything a city does, it costs so much money. So like $1 million. I don't know. It's a lot of money for a toilet. I get that. And there's probably better places that they could put it. But I'm sure someone would have done a calculation about, you know, how much money are we going to make off of, you know, tourism and taxpayers and blah, blah.
Yeah.
Hopefully someone intelligent did the math and it's paid for itself by now.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. I mean, if it's a cool thing and it's a cool attraction and people, you know, like nobody's going to travel there just for that. But if it's an added attraction that, oh, there was this bridge and you get to walk across it and there's a restaurant on it and it was beautiful. And
yeah. And then how many,
you know, like that adds up over time.
Yeah, I get that.
It's like when they were building the giant fiddle here in,
oh God, I think it's ridiculous. Why don't, for people...
Yeah, I think it's silly too, but I get it. Like,
let's explain what it is, though. For people who haven't visited our hometown of Sydney and Cape Breton Island, we're known lately by a lot of people as having a giant fiddle, which is like a violin. What is this thing? Tell me about it.
The fiddle, the giant fiddle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
it's right on the water. You know, so when the cruise ships pull up, it's the first thing they see as they're coming into the harbor, and they see the giant fiddle. And
how giant?
Well, it's the world's largest fiddle. I don't know how many feet tall it is.
It's probably like 40 feet, maybe 30 feet.
Yeah, it's up there. Yeah, it's got to be 30 feet, something like that.
Just a big fiddle on the kind of the waterfront.
It's a massive fiddle. Yeah, on the waterfront, but it's, you know, it's for people who aren't from here, it's interesting.
Yeah, I get that. But I also noticed people try to get a picture taken with it, but it's so big that you can't really get your picture taken with it because it's too big. So all the pictures are like you standing with the bottom of a fiddle.
Some people are able to kind of do the upward shot to get a decent pic of it, but it's all about creating interest on the waterfront, especially when you want to convince people who are passengers on it. We get a lot of cruise ships in the summer and the fall, you know, especially in the fall. And you want to encourage these passengers on this stop to come off of that ship and go downtown and spend money. So if they see something that visually catches their eye and they're like, oh, let's go check that out, then they'll get off the ship and they'll go and wander around after they take a picture, and they'll go have a bite to eat, and they'll go into some of the shops, and they'll explore the downtown a bit. To us, like, a fiddle is a really cliche thing because it's like we live here and it's what we see all the time, and it's almost like makes us gag. It's like, yeah, I get it, you know, Celtic music and fiddles and all this stuff. But for people who've never been here and maybe don't know a lot about the place, they're like, oh, that's interesting. You know, why is there a giant fiddle here? And, you know, they learn a little bit about the place.
Yeah. I guess maybe it's not that bad. I don't know. Something about it rubs me the wrong way. But I get the idea of it being like a lure to get people off of the cruise ship to buy things, stimulate the economy.
Yeah,
pay
and
taxes.
lots of places around, lots of towns and cities, and they do stuff like that, you know, because it's memorable. Mm-hmm. You know, the place with the giant fiddle, right? Yeah, I remember that, mm-hmm. You know.
Well, I think we got through all of our topics. I think this was a great show. We got a lot of cool listener initiated stories. We covered some weird stuff that tie into both what makes Canada weird and great, and tie into what makes the series great, because it's tying into our prior episodes. But I think I'm proud of this episode. I think we did it.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to Ellen's apology. I can't.
Her apology collage that she's going to make.
Yeah, it's going to be beautiful. And yeah, I'd like to see some pictures of it in progress, you know, as she's building it and creating it. And, and I'm really looking forward to that I'm sorry, Aaron apology collage of a peanut butter cup.
All right, well, let's wrap it up. Until next time, Aaron.
Until next time, Jordan.
Grab a Mr. Solid.
Don't get hit by a Mr. Solid.
I want to thank you for joining Aaron and I in our Keep Canada Weird discussion. But before we part, I have some thanks. First, a big thanks to Aaron for sharing another evening with me and with you, the listeners of Nighttime. A big thanks to Monty Datta for contributing the music for this episode, and a thank you to the internet's favorite cult leader, Unicole, for supplying the intro and outro narration. But the most important thanks goes to everyone who listens to Nighttime, as without your interest and your support, Nighttime would be as pointless as it would be impossible. But with that said, keeping the show alive is and has always been an uphill battle. So if you want to help take a bit of weight off the show's back, make sure you're listening on the premium feed. And not only does the premium feed make the show possible, it'll give you more of each topic than you'll find here on the free feed, as I'm adding exclusive content regularly. So for about the price of a cup of coffee, help keep the show alive and give yourself more of it at patreon.com/nighttimepodcast. And on the topic of the premium feed, let me thank the newest subscribers, Charles, Elizabeth, and Corey. Thank you all for going premium. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show but can't do it with a premium feed subscription, you can give me a big hand by simply sharing this episode on social media and letting like-minded friends know what we're doing here. If you have any story ideas, if you want to give feedback on the show, or contribute a voice memo, you can do that and more at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. I hope to hear from you that way. But until then, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let me know if you see anything weird.
The Nighttime Podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Jordan Bonaparte. Copyright Jordan Bonaparte.
Beautiful, serene, majestic. The true North. Strong and weird.